Greetings. My name is Greg Vigil. I'm the U.S. and I lead a team of experts that focus on helping our manufacturers transform their business. Been at Microsoft 7 years, but prior to Microsoft, I spent 14 years in a manufacturing environment, including managing a business unit and living in a plant for a couple of years in South Carolina. So what I'd like to cover with you in today's session and forum is how have we seen manufacturers adapt during COVID? What are they doing to digitize their business? How is that transforming them? And how will we see that lasting impact? So with that, what I'd like to do is share with you a framework about how Microsoft thinks about this opportunity and something we call lessons from the edge. So we've seen shifts, obviously, as many of you have lived through this, but we've seen what we're expecting to be some durable shifts post-COVID-19. COVID-19 created this demand uncertainty, disruption, supply chain disruptions. We saw national security challenges and trade barriers causing logistics and disruption. Obviously, we're all extremely familiar now with physical distancing and what that's done for us at a personal level, but also in the manufacturing environment. How do you adapt to that? Capabilities such as remote management, digital collaboration that maybe weren't even thought of previously for the frontline workers and shop floor workers. You've seen displacement, obviously, of a recession and people out of work, disruptions in the workforce. We believe coming out of COVID-19 that we'll see some of these durable shifts post-COVID-19. The move to more agile factories and more agile manufacturing, creating these more small-scale modular plants to replace these rigid mass production environments. Certainly seeing operations and value chains getting redefined. Also, customers diving into supply chain resiliency. How do you use this as a competitive advantage and leverage the opportunities coming out of COVID-19 to be more adaptable and resilient in your supply chain? Regionalization, obviously, with COVID, with disruptions in global transportation, they've created some rethinking of how do we potentially use more local supply chain and develop those local ecosystems. Augmented reality and automation required for operator safety, but also making us more competitive long-term. Leveraging the ability for end-to-end digitization. We're certainly also seeing mobility and reskilling of the workforce becoming the norm, and ultimately need for cost transparency and how do we create that transparency that we need to really understand our business. And I thought I'd share one specific example. So this was an amazing partnership that Microsoft participated in the Ventilator Challenge UK consortium. So it brought together a number of companies to do something that we didn't even think was possible in less than 4 weeks. These partner companies came together as a group, and Microsoft being one of them, went from being able to produce 50 ventilators to a production capacity of 1,500 in less than a week. It basically took 10 years worth of ventilators, and they were created within 10 weeks' time. So it was a number of partners that came together, but leveraging these new digital capabilities, partners like PTC creating training in virtual reality, augmented reality environments, partners like Accenture and Avanan creating a Dynamics ERP system that was able to create this end-to-end capability and supply chain control tower. So it was fascinating at the speed with which we went from an idea to the first design, to training employees, to full bills of material and sourcing over 900 parts and shipping 1,500 ventilators in 3 weeks. So it's an example of what is possible if you really put your mind and your effort to it. And obviously COVID created that challenge and opportunity for us. At Microsoft, we like to think across this journey of COVID in kind of three phases. First is respond, which most of us have done. We've gone to remote Teams meetings and digitizing our workforces, where many companies and manufacturing didn't even have work from home policies. The next phase that we're in now with many manufacturers is that recovery phase. How do we focus and become better? How do we address customer needs? How do we recover quickly and accelerate coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic? And then finally, how do we reimagine our business? This is giving many businesses the opportunity to completely rethink what and how they deliver their products and services. And we do believe there's going to be an opportunity for those that are aggressive at reimagining their business coming out of COVID-19. So as we look across this, Microsoft likes to put it in these 5 pillars for manufacturing. And so what I'll do is walk you through these 5 pillars, starting with transform your workforce. So obviously with COVID-19, back office did have the digital tools, but I'd like to share this an example from Alcoa about how they adapted with teams for their shop floor workers to really reimagine their business.
Alcoa is all about safety, and one of our core values is care for people. We have a plant here on the east coast of Iceland. We were quick to understand that the virus could pose serious danger to our people, so we quickly reacted to that. We need to operate 24/7, but we obviously had to do drastic things in order to be able to continue our work. Teams is the communication tool we use at our plant to get internal message across to all of our workforce. The biggest thing we had to do was that we needed to totally segregate the shifts.
My team, it cannot be taken for granted that people would do something like this in such a short notice. We changed from 8-hour shifts to 12-hour shifts in 3 days. Having teams and shifts just made it possible, made it very, very easy.
We created a special COVID-19 channel. We had to create new rules around transporting, our cafeteria, around cleaning, making sure that people are cleaning all the surface that they touch between shifts. And we asked people to pin this channel to the top of their list to make sure that they wouldn't miss anything. We asked people to post videos or pictures and tell us what you're doing today, and people loved it. So we really just felt that there was a need to get the workforce together, and we decided let's try to do a town hall online and record it so it would be accessible to everybody. Teams was definitely not a small thing in responding with COVID. It was crucial. I don't know how we would have done it without it, really. At our plant, we haven't had a case, which we are just so grateful for, but there is no doubt in our mind that this is because we took such drastic actions. We really felt the responsibility of what we needed to do in order to protect our people. That's one thing to like organizing and push it out, but then it's the people that are affected by it. I mean, those are the heroes, definitely.
So that's a great example of how our customer, Alcoa, has transformed how they manage the workforce. The frontline workers were typically not part of that digitization process and have rapidly had to become part of that digitization process. So we think about empowering those first line workers and how do you create these capabilities to operate efficiently and effectively in a new environment. So whether it's Microsoft or some of our partners, there's a number of capabilities from Teams to Blue Yonder to SAP that have really leaned in to help manufacturers quickly and rapidly transform their workforce and digitize the processes. Here's a good example. This actually came from a customer and I was fascinated by it. And so we worked with the Microsoft product team to put a guide together. So just because we have to be socially distanced doesn't take away the need for doing virtual Kaizen events. So you can't get 30 people in a conference room together and whiteboarding in the way that we would have previously, but we still need to be able to take those ideas and put them into action. So Microsoft created a guide to help our customers as they digitize their processes as a result of COVID. So for example, we've created this guide to help customers understand how they can create these Kaizen events, from preparing for the meetings and putting the content together to creating things like the ability to take polls and prioritize what the most important areas to transform on the shop floor are. Also the ability to collect employees' ideas, to post videos, to post pictures, to post suggestions in terms of rapidly transforming the manufacturing process. We've got the ability to also create those breakout rooms so you can break into smaller groups to deal with some tough issues as a part of those events. Also, the ability to analyze and build into the flow that data, the historical data, the current process data, to analyze and understand what is happening. The ability to brainstorm. So again, like you would do in a physical environment, creating the ability to go ahead and put ideas up, to post those ideas, and then to be able to vote on those that the team thinks are the most effective or the most opportune areas for improvement. And then the ability to do those things that we did in person with a whiteboard, whether it's on a Microsoft Surface device or a Surface Hub on the shop floor, the ability to take those and capture them digitally. And then as a result of these events, you can then go assign and create the necessary to-dos and next steps for the team so that you can take action on the ideas coming out of it. So that's just one example of using digital tools and technologies to transform our business. It would be amazing to think if 15 years ago something like this had happened and how we would have responded. It would have been much different because we didn't have these digital tools that allowed us to enable these scenarios. So next, let's jump into engaging customers in new ways. Because it's changed how we work and how we operate, it's changed how we need to interact with our customers and our partners. So certainly driving the ability to deliver new customer experiences across all the different channels, whether it's a support service, because many manufacturers or mine sites or food production locked down their environments and weren't allowing partners on site. And so if you were spent some time with a mining equipment manufacturer, they were no longer allowed to go on site at a mine to help do the field service required of the equipment that they manage for their customers. So creating those new experiences, we leverage tools like Dynamics 365 Remote Assist and hands-free video calling using partner tools like RealWire or Microsoft HoloLens. This now allows you to still achieve those needed field service visits, yet leveraging someone that's on site and being able to guide them with augmented reality type of tools so that they can be productive and you can be productive in supporting and servicing their business. Another area that we've transformed the engagement with our customers is chatbots. Obviously, you had thousands of support workers at different companies that were scattered to their home offices, maybe didn't have all the tools that they needed to be productive remotely. And I'm sure many of you dealt with it like I did when you're trying to call and get support. It created a challenging environment. Well, leveraging chatbots to quickly build and deploy within days a front end to that customer service and support environment. So we've seen companies like Microsoft itself that now front end 40 to 50% of our inquiries via a chatbot and solves those problems without having to hand that off to a live agent. So there's the opportunity to take this challenge that we faced and turn it into a more efficient, effective way to support customers. So let's jump into building more agile factories, probably the one I spend most of my time on. And as we work with customers, especially coming out of COVID, there's an opportunity to step back and say, hey, can we get much more aggressive in creating that agile factory? So we think of it in 3 MVP or minimum viable product type of scenarios. So first being operational visibility. How do you create that control tower? How do you leverage IoT? Can you do modeling and simulation before you actually build operational processes? And when customers have done this, we've seen 35% improvement in OEE and 65% labor efficiency. Asset productivity is another critical factor, especially for those manufacturers that need to meet the surge in demand. So we're looking at asset management, predictive maintenance, remote manufacturing operations. And where customers have done this, they've seen decreases in time to diagnose and repair by up to 20%. Also reduced unplanned downtime by about 25%. And then finally, production operations, quality management, intelligent control systems, automation, robotics. So again, seeing a reduction in changeover times, seeing reductions in cost of yield losses. So this challenge has created a number of opportunities that we can leverage new digital tools to address and create those agile factories. The fourth area we focused on, and again, been heavily focused on of recent months, is creating these more resilient supply chains. So it's certainly a challenge, again, when we think about it across the MVPs. So supply chain visibility is first and foremost. We, with partners like Blue Yonder, have rapidly created supply chain control towers so that we can see and understand and sense what's happening in the supply chain in real time. And so it's expediting expenses and increasing planner efficiency. So planning and optimization. So again, using AI, machine learning tools, using signals from social tools to be able to try to help provide more accurate demand forecasting, especially as we've seen these shocks to the system. Planning and doing inventory optimization using AI tools, and then ultimately creating these integrated end-to-end business planning processes. So again, it's helping customers reduce inventory, improve their margins. And then finally, a emerging one, and probably a little bit further out there, is the supply chain trust capabilities. And certainly things like vaccines, you have to have a very tight and trusted end-to-end supply chain. So emerging technologies like blockchain and helping manage that supply chain end-to-end with 100% confidence. So it's helping us decrease warranty incidents and increase on-time delivery. So on the left, you see a pictorial of supply chain, right, where you've got all these separate processes that are disconnected and potentially broken, moving to this digital platform and the ability to create a digitized supply chain that's highly flexible. And this is an example of what Microsoft's supply chain digitization process looks like. So we've created this supply chain as a service cloud. So we feed it all of our data from raw material suppliers all the way to end retailers. So we've got this great end-to-end view, so we didn't have to go replace all those systems, yet we leverage cloud technologies to build this new connected supply chain to give us insights. Because as you can imagine, in whether it's PC demand or Xbox demand, the COVID-19 created a whole different level of challenges for us. And so now we can layer on top of that new tools and capabilities, whether it's maps, real-time visibility, so that our supply chain team can look across the entire end-to-end process and understand how we're performing and what expectations are. So finally, let's jump into the last one, and probably one of the more futuristic and exciting ones, is unlocking innovation and delivering new services. So we've got the ability to enable things like product as a service. So again, coming into COVID, many manufacturers were trying to rethink their product. Could they turn it into a digital product? Could they turn it into a subscription type of product? And the pandemic has expedited some of those moves. So now when you think about, instead of selling a product, you're selling service and uptime of a particular piece of equipment, as an example. So there's a whole digital platform that customers are now able to leverage to create these products as a service and to rethink how they go to market. So we've got customers from Unilever who's using digital twins and managing process control for their end customers, to Rolls-Royce, as an example, selling power by the hour. So these digital tools and remote necessities have helped customers rethink how they go to market. And so there's an opportunity for you as a manufacturer to think through your products and how you could transform them to support your customers. And so it's then opened up other areas such as connected field service for manufacturing. So how do you create that opportunity in the process to now provide that connected service and connected experience for your customers? So with that, we'll wrap up with our mission statement. So Microsoft's aim is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And thankfully, we've been able to do that aggressively with our customers as they felt with all these shocks to their manufacturing, their supply chain, their product environments. And we've seen that 2 years of transformation take place in 2 months in many cases. So with that, look forward to answering any questions and continuing to work with you, our customers, to help them as they adapt and hopefully get to this reimagine phase. So thank you, and have a good afternoon and good evening.
All right, so let's see if we have any question from the audience.
Sure, I saw one that I already answered. So Dynamics 365 does work with Rollware. Then there's a second one, because the slide that I had showed was Rollware with Dynamics 365 Remote Assist. But yes, there are other connection points from actually Teams to Dynamics 365 Connected Field Service. So there's a number of capabilities that Rollware and Microsoft provide to our customers. And obviously we can get a link to the Rollware site to detail all those connection points out. Another question just came in. Please explain the Microsoft PTC collaboration. Microsoft and PTC have a very deep committed relationship in terms of partners, including an investment by Rockwell in PTC. So there's a three-way partnership between the three companies. But with Microsoft, we actually go to market with PTC and jointly go work with customers to help them solve for so specifically IoT, but again, that's the common one that we've been working with them on, but across their entire platform, it's committed. And I actually just saw a paragraph where they called out the power of the Microsoft partnership in their most recent earning announcements and how important it was to their transition to the cloud. So we've got a very solid relationship. You can actually bring PTC and Microsoft in together, and their platform and their tools run exclusively on Microsoft Azure. So going down, so it's product as a service slide was particularly interesting. What do you think is the biggest challenge towards executing that? So product as a service is an extremely hot area right now, especially in light of COVID, right? So you have customers that were looking at making connected products so that they could help support their end customers by leveraging the tools and capabilities of a connected product. And we've only seen that accelerate, where companies are trying to rapidly figure out how to recreate their products and sell them as a subscription service. So in terms of the challenges there, the business model challenge is typically one of the bigger ones. So as a company starts to think about, okay, we used to sell a piece of equipment, and then maybe we sold a service contract along with it, maybe we didn't. In figuring out how do you now sell that product potentially as a subscription service, or how do you pay for it, or what does a customer pay for it, what's the value add? So from what we've seen, the technology is not the problem. It's a well-enabled scenario. When you think Microsoft, as an example, has been doing connected product in Xbox for decades. So the tools and technologies are really typically not the challenge. It is more around the business model and how you tackle that. And then, can you share more about the Open AI platform? So and I'm not sure if you meant the Open Data initiative that Microsoft has with a bunch of industry partners, or if it was Open AI. I don't recall on the slide where that where that was exactly. But Open AI platform, Microsoft's participating in making sure that AI is done with future in mind, right? So we don't have AI go badly on us. So we partner with a number of other companies to try to make sure, is it being done ethically? Is it being done securely? And what are some of those challenging issues that we haven't faced to date? Okay, And I am not the expert on OpenAI, but I can also get a link to some additional details because it looks like there were a couple questions on OpenAI. And then how are you dealing with latency, downtime, bandwidth, and possibly wireless issues? Is this a challenge? This is a great question. And interestingly, I've been at this for 4 years with Microsoft. And typically when we'd go start to talk to manufacturers about either connected product or connected operations to improve efficiency, most often we faced, there's no way we're going to the cloud. We can't do it. We can't have the latency. I mean, I personally know when I lived in South Carolina, our plant had 1.5 megabit connection and I had a 50 megabit connection from my home. So it's definitely a challenge, but I think one that Microsoft's best positioned of any of the cloud providers to deal with those challenges. So we've got what we call Azure Stack or Azure Edge. So we can actually take Azure and deploy it in a manufacturing environment with our customers. So what we can do is turn up and turn live the services so that they operate at the plant level. And then when necessary, things like I've worked with some automotive manufacturers looking to solve quality issues, you obviously, in that case, we were doing AI, you obviously aren't going to send millions of points of data to the cloud live while you're operating that equipment. So what we do is we'll take things like we'll take the data, publish it to the cloud, say maybe once every 24 hours, modify and adapt the AI models, because you do have to do a lot of those types of scenarios in the cloud. But then we can actually bring those back down to the edge and run those AI models locally so that you're not dealing with bandwidth, down internet issues. So there's some use cases where maybe we are connecting live to the cloud, but we do architect around that to make sure that you can achieve the goals that you have set out to achieve, but you can do it in a way that doesn't cause problems with network and connectivity. And that is a big differentiator. If you look at Microsoft's approach to cloud, it has always been a hybrid cloud, and we used to get criticized. They used to criticize our CEO and say that it was just because we were too late to the game and it wasn't the right model, and so we were just claiming hybrid because we were behind. The reality is we always knew that certain portions of scenario are never going to be real-time live cloud. And if you look now, Amazon and Google are both struggling to try to catch up and build their own capabilities, whereas ours have been matured for a while. And I think the next question I see here is, how are you helping customers at the edge with IoT solutions on Azure? So I think I just addressed that largely with my comments about our Azure Edge capabilities and Azure Stack, where you can deploy it in the cloud or locally. And again, we've worked with PTC so that their platform leverages all the same great Azure services behind the scenes to help them be successful. And can you talk a little about how Power BI is used in manufacturing applications? This is another great scenario that customers have been deploying like wildfire over the last 3 to 4 years as I've worked in this space. So there's a number of places we're leveraging Power BI. The most basic, straightforward Power BI solutions are just taking data the factory's producing and creating dashboards and the ability to monitor and watch your operations real time. And that can be both locally or creating a global control tower. So I've worked with a couple customers that want to have a digital control tower across 70 plants around the world. And so leveraging Power BI, the way we can architect it, you can actually take and do a scenario like that, really create that global control tower that customers want. And then there's some other interesting emerging scenarios with that. So with Dynamics or with HoloLens, you can actually do some more unique visualization. So as you're walking around looking at the equipment, and if you're familiar with HoloLens and our augmented reality tools, you can look at a piece of equipment, and by building some of these Power BI dashboards that are visible and viewable, it actually brings to life kind of the equipment and the environment in a very different way to see things that you wouldn't have seen before. So are there any recent or upcoming technology upgrades to HoloLens? Good question and timely. So yes, we're fully in production with HoloLens 2. There was a while when HoloLens 2 was a bit hard to get, just because there was so much demand. So HoloLens 2 shifted the weight to make it more balanced, because if you have an operator and you want them to potentially wear a HoloLens for 8 hours, the first few years of HoloLens, it created a bit of a challenge, right? Because it was a bit bulky, a bit heavy the way it was designed. So HoloLens 2 specifically improved the ergonomics of it. So that was one. There's a number of upgrades, but that was one of the most requested or sought after changes. And then the field of view actually widened, the fidelity increased. So there's a number of things that have come to HoloLens 2 where I would guess we're probably a little further away from a HoloLens 3, but that would, again, I'd be guessing because I don't look at the product team roadmaps. They don't publish those to us. But since we just released HoloLens 2 not too long ago, I think we're going to have that marketplace for a while. And then finally, we just announced some new ruggedized HoloLens capabilities. So specific for things like oil filled or other manufacturing environments. Again, it was a heavily requested feature. So again, we can get a link to that, or you can just search HoloLens 2 ruggedized, I believe, and you'll be able to find the specific details. But there's some new scenarios that customers that couldn't use them can now use them. So the partnership with Ford, I'll have to look on the Ford one. So I know just a week or two ago we announced, I believe it was with GM and their Cruise unit, where they fully committed to building their platform on the Azure platform for their self-driving car capabilities. Because I'd have to look. I don't recall seeing a Ford announcement just recently, because they've carved out automotive in our segmentation. So I haven't worked with Ford in the last 9 months or so. But I'll take a look at that, and if there's anything that we can provide as a follow-up, we can. But I do know we had our CEOs on with the CEO of GM and the Cruise announcement, because it was an end-to-end platform commitment. And let's see. Any of your customers using autonomous control of hazardous continuous process? So that's a good one. I have not, so I haven't spent as much time typically working more on the discrete side of the business. I know we have a partnership with MXD, which is a quasi-government funded program to help keep America competitive in the manufacturing space. And so in their environment, so Microsoft's a tier 1 partner. And so we bring technology to them. We bring customers to the MXD in Chicago, if you're familiar with it. But anyway, it's an industry consortium kind of that's government-private partnership. So yes, in that particular case, I've not worked on it directly, but they've built out some capabilities of being able to autonomously control and protect. In that case, the demo environment that they've created was to protect it, right? So if they've got a security module inside their facility, because what MXD does is build cutting edge capabilities for manufacturers to demonstrate how they work. Anyway, in that case, we worked with them on some of the security components of how do you protect that environment from being hacked in the first place, but then do you also have a recovery process? So in that case, it actually is an autonomous I think it was a chemical processing. So they've actually got a demo set up. So certainly we work with our customers. We've got a number of new capabilities in terms of security. IoT Defender, I believe, is what we just announced. And so in that front, as part of our earnings, Microsoft just reported that we did $10 billion in security products in the last 12 months. So definitely something that we can work with with our customers on in terms of securing their processes. So let's see, how is Azure enabling predictive or prescriptive solutions for maintenance, product ops, and quality? So that's kind of a core scenario. And we've been working on that for a number of years. I've probably worked with a couple dozen customers directly. So Microsoft's got what we call our cognitive services. And as part of those cognitive services, the intent is to try to democratize AI and predictive capabilities, machine learning, those types of tools, so that even a citizen developer can go create those capabilities. And so that's one where we work regularly with customers and partners. For example, I was just on with Insights yesterday or the day before, and they kind of went through a couple of their predictive modeling. So not only are we able to take data off equipment and do that predictive and prescriptive scenario, but we're now doing things like video or image recognition and analysis, right? So we've worked with a couple truck manufacturers, an example, where they used to have to go physically look at to make sure that every rivet was put in on the top of the bus, right? And occasionally they'd find one, and it's obviously a quality issue. Well, using cameras, you can actually take a photo of that and determine if it's not accurate or not using AI and machine learning. So there's a number of places that we've deployed that, and our customers are using it actively today. And so I think that takes me through the questions that, let me just do another quick scroll here to see if I answered all of them. Okay, yeah, I think we've gotten through all of the questions. So I appreciate it. I'll turn it back over to the ARC advisory group for any wrap-up that's necessary.
All right, Greg, great job. There are so many questions, but you answered all of them. Great job. Thank you, Greg, for this workshop. It was very interesting. We appreciate your time. And to all the attendees, thank you for attending. We have another session coming up in almost half an hour. So take a little break and do join us for rest of the sessions. Enjoy the forum. Goodbye, everyone.